The human ship descended slowly through the lavender sky, cutting a sharp contrast against the tall spires of the alien palace. Its sleek metal hull glimmered in the soft light of the twin suns. On the ground, the palace guards moved with military precision, their armored suits humming faintly as energy shields shimmered around them. Every alien within the city had been warned. No human had ever approached the palace, and none were expected to ever reach it. Inside the control room high above the palace gates, the Queen watched through a series of hovering screens. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, traced every motion of the strange craft descending from the sky. The humans had always been considered clever, yes, but small, fragile, and far from a threat. And yet, there it was, a human ship, untouched by the outer defense arrays. The guards patrolled the entrance, their long, sleek weapons held at ready. The human exited the ship slowly, arms relaxed at his sides. He was alone, unarmed by their standards, but there was something in the way he moved. It was not fear, nor hesitation, nor arrogance. It was confidence, a calm, steady presence that seemed impossible to ignore. As soon as his foot touched the marble-like surface of the palace grounds, something strange happened. Every guard froze. Weapons hovered in midair. The rhythm of their marching halted as if some invisible command had cut through their thoughts. Whispers ran through the ranks, sharp and incredulous, but not a single alien stepped forward to challenge him. The human did not look around. He walked as though the palace belonged to him, though every alien had been taught since birth that none could enter the Queen's domain without invitation. There was no sign of fear in his face, no twitch of hesitation, no trembling in his hands, only quiet determination. From her throne high in the main hall, the Queen descended slowly. Her long, flowing robes trailed behind her like liquid starlight. Guards snapped to attention, ready to block any perceived threat, but even they could not move. Their instincts screamed that this human was unlike any they had ever encountered. The human's eyes met the Queen's. He did not bow, he did not smile, and he did not speak immediately. And yet, in the silence between them, a dialogue began. A conversation without words. The Queen felt it first in the pit of her stomach, a ripple of awareness that told her this human was not just clever, but something more. Her curiosity grew as she studied him. Humans were unpredictable, yes, but they were also resilient. She had read the reports from explorers who had faced them. Humans could survive conditions that would cripple other species. They could improvise and adapt in ways no algorithm could predict, and they could face fear without surrendering. But seeing one walk calmly into her palace, unshaken by centuries of guards, was something entirely different. The human stopped a few meters from the grand entrance. His gaze swept across the palace walls, over the guards, and finally landed back on the Queen. "I come in peace," he said, his voice steady, carrying over the hushed hum of energy shields and alien murmurs. "I am here to speak with you." The Queen raised an eyebrow, a gesture that caused the floor beneath her feet to shimmer faintly, a display of her power. "Peace," she repeated, her tone both skeptical and amused. "Do humans even know what that means in this galaxy?" The human did not flinch. "I know what it means to survive. I know what it means to face a challenge. And I know what it means to act with purpose. I seek dialogue, not war." Her guards exchanged uncertain glances. Their training told them that no human could speak in such calm confidence while standing in the presence of the Queen. Something in the human's posture, the way his shoulders relaxed and his eyes held steady, seemed to radiate an invisible authority that even they could not ignore. The Queen's curiosity overcame her caution. She descended the final steps, floating lightly across the floor as if gravity itself honored her presence. "You have reached where no human has ever reached before," she said. "That alone is impressive." But why are you here? The human inclined his head slightly. I come because your species holds knowledge, and your world holds secrets that concern all of us. I am here to understand, not to conquer. I believe humans and your kind can find common ground. The queen laughed softly, a sound that echoed against the palace walls. It was musical but tinged with authority. Common ground, she repeated. You speak boldly. Most humans would have been shredded by our defenses before even reaching this hall. The human smiled faintly. Perhaps, but I do not rely on strength alone. I rely on reason, observation, and the courage to step forward when others hesitate. The queen's eyes narrowed. She had met many species across the galaxy, each proud in its own way, each claiming superiority. None had ever walked uninvited into her throne room. None had caused her guards to freeze in place. This human, small and unarmed, had done both effortlessly. A murmur ran through the crowd of onlookers, alien citizens who had gathered to witness this unprecedented event. Some were frightened, some curious, but all were drawn to the quiet power the human radiated. His calm confidence was magnetic, and even from afar, it demanded attention. The queen raised her hand, a gesture that sent a soft wave of light through the hall, signaling her guards to lower their weapons. Very well, she said. You have my attention. But understand this. My palace is not a place for idle conversation. Speak wisely, human, or leave. The human nodded once, a small but deliberate motion. I understand, and I intend to speak wisely. I seek not to challenge, but to share what I know and to learn what you can teach. For a long moment, silence filled the room. The air seemed to hum with tension and possibility. The queen studied the human as if trying to read a complex puzzle written in flesh and bone. Then, with deliberate grace, she gestured toward the central platform. Come, walk with me. Tell me what drives your species to reach across the stars. The human followed, stepping lightly yet confidently. Every guard who had frozen began to stir again, some slowly, some reluctantly, but none dared approach the human directly. Their instincts told them that this encounter was unlike any other, that the human's presence alone demanded respect. As they walked, the human spoke, not loudly, but clearly enough for the queen and those near them to hear. Humans are curious. We strive to understand, to explore, and to survive. We have weaknesses, yes, but we also have the ability to adapt, to learn, and to act when logic and instinct meet. That is what drives us to reach places others fear to go. The queen considered his words. She had heard similar claims from humans in reports sent across the galaxy, but hearing it from one standing in her palace, in her presence, carried a weight no document could convey. You speak of courage, she said, her voice softer now, tinged with genuine curiosity. Do you know what it costs to enter a place like this uninvited? The human nodded. I do, and I am willing to face the consequences. Sometimes the risk of standing still is greater than the risk of stepping forward. They reached the main chamber of the palace, a vast hall of crystal and metal, where light bent strangely, reflecting in colors the human had never seen before. The queen paused at the center, and the human stopped a few steps behind her. The scale of the room made his presence seem small, yet somehow it did not diminish his authority. The queen turned to him fully, her gaze sharp. Your species fascinates me, human. You come boldly into places forbidden, speak without fear, and seem to carry something unusual. Tell me, what is it that makes humans so different? The human considered his response carefully. We are resilient, adaptable, and capable of great courage. We value life, knowledge, and understanding. and when faced with uncertainty, we often act in ways that surprise others, and even ourselves. That is what makes us different. That is why I am here." The queen nodded slowly, intrigued. "You are bold, human, and yet I sense honesty in your words. Perhaps there is more to your species than I understood. We shall see." Outside, the twin suns dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the palace grounds. The guards, now fully attentive, watched every movement of the human and the queen. A quiet tension filled the air, one that spoke of possibility, danger, and change. For the first time in centuries, the palace stood still, not because of fear, but because something extraordinary had arrived. The human had entered the queen's palace, and every guard had frozen. And now, with the sun setting, the true story was just beginning. The human followed the queen deeper into the palace. The corridors stretched wider than any city street, their walls carved with strange symbols that pulsed faintly with light. The air smelled faintly of ozone and metals, a scent unfamiliar yet strangely calming to the human. His steps were careful but confident, each footfall deliberate, yet he never faltered, even as the corridors seemed to twist in impossible angles and the ceilings stretched higher than the eye could see. The queen moved with her usual grace, her long robes flowing around her, leaving trails of faint light in the air. She spoke little, but her eyes never left the human. She was intrigued, not just by his courage, but by the aura of calm he carried into the heart of her palace. Few beings, even those of her own species, could walk through these halls without showing awe or fear. This human showed neither. Finally, they reached a chamber that seemed to vibrate with energy. Floating platforms hovered over a shallow pool of liquid light, each platform connected by bridges made of a material that looked like glass, but shimmered like water. Along the walls, intricate devices hummed softly, projecting holographic displays filled with alien text and moving symbols. The room radiated authority, the kind that reminded any visitor that they were standing in the Queen's command center. The Queen stopped and turned toward the human. "This chamber is not meant for visitors," she said. "It is the heart of the palace's intelligence. Here, decisions are made and consequences are born. If you are to stay, you must prove that your mind is capable of understanding what most beings cannot even imagine." The human's eyes scanned the chamber with interest, noting patterns and layouts that hinted at both technology and logic beyond his experience. "I am ready," he said. "Show me what I must understand." With a wave of her hand, the queen activated a series of energy barriers that rose from the floor in shifting patterns, forming a complex three-dimensional puzzle in mid-air. Each barrier glowed with a vibrant color and emitted a soft hum that seemed almost musical. "If you can cross this chamber," she said, "you may prove that humans can comprehend and adapt where others fail. Fail, and you will leave this palace in disgrace, or worse." The human studied the barriers. He could have tried brute force, as he had seen in simulations and stories of humans using raw strength to solve problems, but these barriers were not made to be broken physically. They reacted to thought, motion, and timing. He observed the patterns, noting their shifts, the moments when the light pulsed strongest and when it dimmed. Slowly, he moved forward. His first steps were cautious, testing the timing of the barriers. He noticed that some reacted to movement, others to proximity, and a few seemed almost aware, adjusting themselves in response to hesitation. The human began to walk with more confidence, adjusting his speed, leaning slightly to avoid detection, and using the natural rhythm of his steps to manipulate the barrier's reactions. The queen watched closely, her eyes narrowing as she observed his method. "Clever," she whispered to herself. "He does not rush. He does not rely on instinct alone. He observes. He adapts. This is unusual." As the human progressed, He encountered a barrier that shimmered in a strange pattern, one that seemed almost alive. It shifted faster than the others, responding unpredictably. Many would have stopped or panicked. He paused, closed his eyes briefly, and let his mind map the movements he had already observed. Then he stepped forward with a deliberate motion, moving not through the barrier but with it. The barrier's pattern changed, opening a path as if acknowledging his understanding. The guards outside the chamber whispered among themselves. "How can a human move like that?" one murmured. "He is small, unarmed. And yet he masters what centuries of training could not teach us." The queen's lips curled in a faint smile. "So he is not just brave, he is intelligent, patient, and aware. Perhaps humans are more than I thought." The human moved further, now confident enough to adjust his strategy dynamically. He observed the color shifts in the barriers and noticed a hidden sequence. He leaped onto a floating platform at just the right moment, causing a series of barriers to rearrange themselves in a passageway that no alien, not even the queen herself, had anticipated. Finally, he reached the center of the chamber. The queen watched him stand there, unharmed, surrounded by barriers that seemed to hum in approval, or at least acknowledgement. She studied his face, noting the calmness, the subtle focus, and the lack of arrogance. Most beings who entered this chamber would have shown fear, sweat, or hesitation. This human showed none. "Impressive," the queen said. "Few beings can achieve what you have done. But tell me, human, why do you risk so much to enter my palace? Why risk your life to demonstrate this?" The human's gaze met hers. "Because understanding is worth the risk. Because knowledge is stronger than fear. Because humans believe that the right action is often worth more than the easy one. I am here to learn, to understand, and to seek a solution that may benefit both of our species." The queen's eyes softened slightly. "Most humans I have studied would not speak so plainly. They would bluff, deceive, or retreat. You are different. Perhaps your species has potential that is underestimated even by your own kind." The human stepped closer, careful not to touch the energy barriers, but close enough that the queen could sense his presence fully. "Potential is not enough," he said. "It must be used wisely. I came here because I believe there is a threat approaching, one that will affect more than just your planet or mine. And I believe that if we understand each other, we can face it together." The queen's interest deepened. She had heard rumors of distant conflicts, of dangers in the galaxy that many species dismissed or ignored. And now, a human had come, uninvited, claiming knowledge and seeking dialogue rather than conquest. It was almost unbelievable. A sudden alarm broke the quiet tension of the chamber. Red lights flashed along the walls, and the low hum of the palace's systems intensified. The human did not flinch. He looked toward the queen calmly. "I expected this," he said. "There is a trigger somewhere, and it is responding to our presence. It is not your doing, but it is nearby. We must act." The queen's eyes widened. She had not anticipated that the human would understand the palace's security systems so quickly, nor that he would remain composed when alarms sounded. Guards around the chamber began to stir, uncertain whether to act or wait for her command. "Follow me," the queen said, her voice now commanding but tinged with genuine curiosity. She moved swiftly across the platforms, leading the human to a control panel that hovered mid-air. The human examined the displays instantly, recognizing patterns of energy, surges, and defensive protocols. "This system has been dormant for centuries," he said, pointing to a series of holographic symbols. "It is reacting to some external trigger. If it continues unchecked, it could harm your city and possibly the palace itself." The queen nodded, impressed. "Then act, human. Show me what you can do." Using a combination of intuition, observation, and quick reasoning, The human manipulated the controls. He rerouted energy flows, neutralized unstable protocols, and aligned the system's responses with the palace's natural defenses. The guards watched in awe as the human worked, realizing that his understanding of logic, strategy, and timing surpassed what even the most advanced artificial intelligence of their civilization could achieve. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours to those watching. Finally, the alarms ceased. The lights returned to normal, and the energy barriers around the chamber pulsed once in a gentle rhythm. The human stepped back, his breathing steady, his expression calm. The queen approached, her eyes studying him closely. "You have done something remarkable," she said. "You have navigated my inner chamber, faced my palace defenses, and diffused a threat that could have destroyed everything. Yet you remain calm, measured, and honest. Tell me, human, who taught you to be like this?" The human shook his head slightly. "No one taught me. This is who we are. We adapt. We survive. And when we see a challenge, we do not run. We think, we act, and we learn." The queen considered his words carefully. She had met countless species, countless warriors, and countless strategists. Few had left her impressed. Fewer still had entered her palace without fear and emerged not just alive, but victorious in intellect. "You are unlike any being I have encountered," she said finally. "Perhaps there is more to humans than I understood. Perhaps it is time to see what else you can offer." Outside the chamber, the guards were no longer frozen. They had regained their composure but carried a new respect for the human. Their whispers spoke of admiration and disbelief. "He is small," one said, "yet he commands presence like no one else." The queen turned toward the human. "Walk with me, human. There is more you must see, and perhaps together we can uncover truths that have remained hidden for centuries." The human nodded once, a simple motion, yet full of meaning. As they moved through the palace, the corridors seemed less intimidating now. The light shimmered differently, almost in acknowledgement of the human's presence. For the first time, the palace felt alive in a way that was not just its design. It felt responsive to courage, intelligence, and heart. The queen watched him silently, realizing that the human was changing her perception of everything she had ever known. Strength was not measured by size, weapons, or authority alone. Sometimes it was measured by calmness under pressure, the clarity of thought, and the courage to step where others feared. And so, the human and the queen continued deeper into the heart of the palace, unaware that what lay ahead would test both their courage and wisdom, and perhaps change the course of the galaxy itself. The alarms had ceased, but the tension in the palace was far from over. The human and the queen moved through the labyrinthine halls, their footsteps echoing against the high ceilings. Even though the immediate threat had been neutralized, a lingering pulse of energy reminded them that the palace was still vulnerable. The queen turned to the human as they entered a chamber filled with holographic maps of surrounding star systems. "The threat you sensed," she said, "is more complex than I first believed. It is not a single device or system. Something or someone is moving through our defenses with intent. And it is not friendly." The human studied the maps carefully. Streams of energy patterns crossed planets and moons, converging toward the palace. "It's intelligent," he said, his voice calm but urgent. "It knows what it's doing. And it is learning from the defenses it encounters. That is why the palace responded as it did. It was anticipating the next move. But this is beyond even your system's expectations." The queen's eyes narrowed. "So it is not just a rogue program. It is something alive, or at least driven by a will. Something that can adapt faster than even our most advanced minds can predict." "Yes," the human said. "And if it reaches the heart of this planet, It could cause devastation. Your defenses alone are not enough." The queen considered his words. She had faced many threats over her long reign, but never one that had evaded detection and adapted so quickly. "Then we must act," she said. "You will help me devise a plan, but understand this: failure is not an option." The human nodded. "I understand, and I will help." They moved to a secondary control room, one that few had ever entered. It was smaller, less ornate, but filled with devices that hummed and clicked in rhythm. The walls were lined with data conduits and energy conduits, and at the center, a circular table projected a three-dimensional map of the palace and surrounding territory. The human leaned over the projection, tracing the paths of the energy streams with his fingers. "The threat is using multiple vectors," he explained. "It can bypass standard defenses, but it cannot predict cooperation between human logic and your systems. If we combine forces, we can anticipate its moves before it reacts." The queen raised an eyebrow. "Cooperation? You suggest working with an intruder in my domain?" The human shook his head. "Not the intruder. We must work together. Human strategy with your technology. Alone, neither of us is enough. Together, we can respond faster than the threat can adapt." The queen paused, studying him. His confidence was unwavering, but so was his calm. There was no fear, no hesitation, no hint of recklessness. For the first time in her life, the queen realized that humans had something unique: the ability to see possibilities that others could not, and the courage to act upon them. "All right," she said finally. "We will combine our efforts. But you must follow my instructions precisely. Deviate, and the consequences could be catastrophic." The human inclined his head. "I will follow, but I may also need to suggest alternatives as we proceed. Adaptation is essential." Together, they began coordinating the palace defenses. The human directed guards, reprogrammed minor systems, and predicted potential vulnerabilities with astonishing accuracy. The queen watched closely, impressed not only by his skill, but by the way he could inspire those around him. The guards, who had frozen when he first entered, now moved with renewed purpose, following his suggestions even as they obeyed the queen's commands. As they worked, the threat became visible on the holographic map. A cluster of energy vessels, or drones, was moving toward the palace at high speed. They were sleek, black, and almost insect-like in design. They adapted to every attempt to intercept them, weaving through patrols and defensive grids as if they were learning from each failure. "They are analyzing our reactions," the human said. "We need a way to force them into predictable patterns." The queen's mind worked quickly, her centuries of experience guiding her. "We can create controlled decoys," she said. "Redirect energy flows to create false targets. They will think they are successful, but in reality, they will be funneled toward our countermeasures." The human nodded. "Good. I can predict their movement patterns based on your decoys. We can anticipate every adaptation they make if we set the traps carefully." Hours passed as they coordinated their strategy. The palace hummed with controlled chaos, energy fields shifting, guards moving in precise patterns, and holographic projections updating in real time. The human worked tirelessly, analyzing, predicting, and suggesting moves before the enemy could even execute them. Finally, the first wave of the threat arrived at the outer defenses. The drones moved in a tight formation, their sensors scanning for weaknesses. They hit the decoys exactly as the human predicted, redirecting their energy and exposing themselves to a concentrated counterattack. Lasers and energy pulses from the palace struck with precision, disabling many of the drones before they could adjust. The queen observed with cautious relief. "It is working," she said. "But this is only the beginning. More will come." The human remained focused. "Yes, they will attempt to adapt faster now. We must stay ahead, or they will overwhelm us." True to his prediction, more drones appeared, faster and more numerous. They tested every aspect of the palace defenses, probing for weaknesses. But the human had already anticipated these moves, guiding the Queen's forces to adjust their strategies instantaneously. The palace seemed alive with the rhythm of coordinated action, a dance between human intuition and alien technology. The guards whispered among themselves, astonished by the human's ability to think several steps ahead of the enemy. "He is small," one said, "yet he commands strategy as if he were the Queen herself." The Queen heard the comment but did not react outwardly. She had learned long ago not to underestimate perception. But inside, she felt a deep respect growing for the human who had entered her palace uninvited and now stood as the linchpin in defending it. Hours turned into what felt like days as the human and the Queen coordinated their forces. Every wave of drones was met with careful strategy, every attempt to adapt was countered with foresight, and every vulnerability was secured before the enemy could exploit it. The palace, which had seemed impenetrable to outsiders, now seemed almost sentient, responding to their combined efforts. Finally, the last cluster of drones approached the inner chamber. These were the fastest, the most advanced. They moved unpredictably, analyzing the defenses with near-perfect efficiency. The human stepped forward, studying their movements carefully. "They will attempt to bypass the outer systems entirely," he said. "We must lure them into a central trap, a zone where they cannot adapt fast enough." The Queen considered the suggestion. It was risky. If the plan failed, the palace itself could be damaged. "And if it works?" she asked. "They will be neutralized," the human said, "and we will demonstrate that strategy and intelligence can overcome even the most adaptive threats." The Queen made her decision. "Then we follow your plan. Execute it now." With precision, the human guided the final wave into the designated zone. Energy fields closed around the drones, creating a chamber of containment. The drones struggled, attempting to adjust, but the human had anticipated every possible move. They were trapped, their adaptive algorithms overwhelmed by the combined foresight of human reasoning and the palace's technology. The palace erupted with light as the drones were neutralized. Guards cheered, though carefully, still respecting the authority of the Queen. The human stood calmly, observing the aftermath, ensuring no further threats remained. The Queen approached him, her expression unreadable. Then, finally, she spoke. "You have done what I thought impossible. You have faced a threat that could have destroyed this palace, and you have done so not with brute force, but with intellect, strategy, and courage. You are remarkable." "Human." The human bowed his head slightly. "I only did what I could. There is more to learn and more to prepare. But this shows that cooperation, understanding, and careful thought can overcome even the greatest dangers." For the first time, the Queen felt something unfamiliar: humility. Not before an enemy, but before a human. She had ruled and strategized for centuries, and yet here was a being, small and seemingly fragile, who had outpaced her systems, her soldiers, and even her expectations. Outside the palace, the citizens had gathered, watching as the human moved through the halls. They had seen the threat. They had seen the defenses. And now they witnessed the calm confidence of a human who had faced danger where no other being could. Murmurs of awe spread through the crowd. "He is not like us," one said. "He is beyond our understanding." The Queen observed this quietly. "Perhaps," she said aloud, "humans are not meant to be underestimated. Perhaps their potential is extraordinary." The human did not respond, his attention still focused on securing the palace. But the Queen noticed a quiet determination in his eyes, a resolve that did not fade even after hours of battle. He was not just brave, He was persistent, clever, and committed to ensuring the safety of others. The queen realized that this human, who had entered her palace uninvited and caused her guards to freeze, had now become an indispensable ally. And more than that, he had changed her understanding of what courage, intelligence, and leadership could be. As the final systems hummed back to normal and the last traces of the threat disappeared from the holographic maps, the human turned to the queen. "It is done," he said simply. "For now. But we must remain vigilant. Others may come, and we must be ready." The queen nodded. "Yes, and we will be ready. Not just because of my power, but because of what you have shown us. Humans are capable of more than we imagined." A silence fell over the chamber, not of fear, but of understanding. The palace, the queen, the guards, and the human had faced something extraordinary together. And in that silence, a new respect was formed, one that would shape not just the palace, but the future of their world. The palace had returned to a quiet rhythm, but the tension of the past hours lingered in the air. Guards and citizens alike moved with a newfound respect, still whispering about the human who had entered the queen's palace uninvited and faced threats that even the most seasoned defenders could not handle. The human walked beside the queen through the central hall. His steps were calm, his posture relaxed, but his eyes remained sharp, scanning the surroundings for any sign of danger. The queen, too, seemed altered. Her usual expression of unyielding authority had softened, replaced by curiosity and respect. She had seen countless beings enter her palace, but none had left such a mark on her perception. "They underestimated you," she said, her voice quiet, almost contemplative. "Not the threat, not your skill, not even the courage you carry. Most would have fled or been destroyed, but you are different." The human shrugged slightly. "We adapt, we observe, we act. It is not about fear or arrogance. It is about understanding and responding in the right way at the right moment." The queen regarded him in silence for a moment, then smiled faintly. "Perhaps humans have been misunderstood for too long. Your species has a way of surprising even the most experienced of us." They reached the grand observation balcony, which overlooked the city sprawling beneath the palace. Light from the twin suns bathed the buildings in gold and violet hues. Citizens moved among the streets, unaware of the full scope of what had just occurred, yet sensing that something extraordinary had passed through their city. The human looked down at the bustling city. "There is potential here," he said. "Potential for cooperation, understanding, and peace. But it must be nurtured. Otherwise, fear and pride will undo what has been built." The queen's gaze followed his. She had ruled with a mixture of power and precision for centuries, but she had never considered the possibility of learning from a human. His calm authority, combined with ingenuity and courage, had opened a new way of thinking. Perhaps this was the first step toward a stronger alliance, not just for their planet, but for neighboring systems as well. "We have faced danger together," she said, her voice steady. "And you have proven that humans are not merely clever or brave. You are capable of insight and leadership that rivals even the most advanced beings of this galaxy. I would be foolish not to acknowledge it." The human nodded, appreciating her words, yet not letting them sway his focus. "Acknowledgement is a start. Action is what matters. If we wish to build trust, we must continue to work together, face challenges as they come, and show that courage and intelligence are not bound by species." The queen's eyes softened further. She gestured toward the city. "You have changed how I see my own people, and how I see the galaxy. I had always believed power came from control, from fear, from overwhelming strength. But you have shown me that true power can come from wisdom, courage, and the ability to unite others in a common cause." A distant sound drew their attention. A soft vibration, like the pulse of energy that had warned them of the threat earlier. The human's eyes narrowed. "It may be a residual trace of the threat," he said, "or it may be something new. Either way, preparation is the only choice." The Queen considered this, then nodded. "Then we prepare. Together. I will trust your insight, human, as much as my own judgment." Inside the palace, the guards and citizens moved with renewed energy. They coordinated repairs, checked defensive systems, and shared information with one another. There was no fear, only a sense of purpose. The human, despite his small size, had inspired a confidence that seemed to ripple through the entire city. He had entered as an outsider, yet now his presence was a symbol of hope. Later, in the main chamber, the Queen invited the human to sit beside her at the central console. Holographic displays projected maps, planetary systems, and potential threats. The human studied them, pointing out areas of vulnerability and suggesting strategies for monitoring and defense. His approach was methodical, combining instinct with analysis, experience with intuition. The Queen watched him work and realized that she had underestimated humans for centuries. They were unpredictable, yes, but in ways that often produced results no other species could achieve. Strength alone could not defeat a challenge like this. Adaptability, intelligence, and courage were equally vital, and humans possessed all three in remarkable measure. After hours of planning, the Queen turned to the human. "You have not only saved my palace," she said, "but you have shown me the potential for a new era, one in which my species and yours may work together, not as rivals, but as partners." The human inclined his head, a subtle gesture of acknowledgement. "That is the hope. There is always the risk of misunderstanding or fear, but if we act with honesty and intelligence, it is possible. I came here seeking understanding, not glory. And I believe we have found it." Outside the palace, the twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the city. The light shimmered off the towers and streets, painting everything in hues of gold and violet. Citizens paused in their activities, sensing the quiet shift in the air. The city itself seemed to acknowledge the events that had transpired. The Queen and the human stepped onto the balcony, overlooking the city once more. She spoke quietly. "You have done more than survive or defeat a threat. You have inspired us. The palace, the city, even my guards. None of us will ever see humans in the same way again. You have shown what courage and intelligence can accomplish, even in the face of danger." The human looked at the Queen. "Courage is not just about facing danger," he said. "It is about making choices that others may fear to make. Intelligence is not just knowledge. It is knowing when and how to use what we have. Together, these qualities allow beings to achieve the extraordinary." For the first time, the Queen considered the future differently. She had ruled with the belief that strength and power were the only currencies that mattered in the galaxy. Now, she saw that alliances, understanding, and the courage to act wisely could shape outcomes far beyond brute force. "You have changed more than my perception," she said softly. "You have changed my understanding of potential, of leadership, and of trust. Humans are not just a species to be observed. They are a force that can inspire even the most powerful among us." The human smiled faintly. "Then perhaps this is only the beginning. There are always challenges ahead, but we can face them together with wisdom, courage, and trust." The Queen considered this. For centuries, she had been certain of her own strength and intellect. Yet here was a human, small and seemingly fragile, who had challenged her assumptions and exceeded every expectation. And she could not deny the truth. Humans possessed a spirit that was unique, powerful, and capable of inspiring even the most disciplined and experienced beings in the galaxy. Finally, she spoke, her voice carrying both authority and respect. You will always be welcome in this palace, human. Not as a visitor, but as an ally. You have earned not just my respect, but the respect of all who dwell here. Guards, citizens, and even I, the Queen, recognize your worth." The human inclined his head once more, a gesture of gratitude. "Thank you. I do not seek recognition, only understanding and cooperation, but it is reassuring to know that my efforts are appreciated." The palace settled into a quiet calm. The threat had been neutralized, the defenses were stronger than ever, and a new understanding had been forged between humans and the Queen's people. The guards moved with renewed purpose, the citizens spoke in hushed but confident tones, and the Queen herself seemed lighter, more open to possibilities she had never considered before. As night fell over the city, the twin moons rose, casting silver light across the palace grounds. The human stood beside the Queen, looking out over the city, feeling a quiet satisfaction. He had entered a palace where no human had gone before, faced dangers no one expected him to face, and left an impression that would resonate for generations. The Queen placed a hand lightly on the railing beside him. "You have done more than survive," she said. "You have changed the way we see humans, and perhaps even the way we see ourselves. Your courage, intelligence, and calm in the face of danger. It is extraordinary." The human smiled softly. "I only did what I could. Humans are not perfect, but we strive to understand, to act, and to learn. That is what brought me here, and that is what will guide us in the future." For the first time in centuries, the Queen felt a sense of hope that was not rooted in power, strategy, or dominance. It was rooted in trust, understanding, and the quiet courage of a species she had never truly known. She realized that this human, small and unassuming, had done more than anyone could have imagined. He had shown that the galaxy was full of possibilities, and that even the smallest being could make the greatest difference. And so, as the palace rested beneath the twin moons, the human and the Queen stood together, looking toward a future that was uncertain, but full of promise. They had faced danger, survived, and discovered something far more valuable than power: understanding, cooperation, and the extraordinary potential that lay within humanity. In that quiet moment, the palace was no longer just a symbol of authority or fear. It had become a place of learning, alliance, and respect. And the human, who had entered uninvited, had changed everything. The Queen turned to him one final time. "Go," she said. "Your people will hear of this day. They will know that courage, intelligence, and the will to act wisely can shape the galaxy. You are a symbol, human, of what your species can achieve." The human nodded. "Then I will go, but I will not forget, and neither will they. This is only the beginning." He walked toward the palace doors, leaving the Queen, the guards, and the city forever changed. The stars above shone brightly, reflecting the possibilities that lay ahead. And for the first time, everyone in the palace, aliens and humans alike, understood that true strength was not in size, power, or fear, but in courage, intelligence, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. The human had entered the Queen's palace, faced dangers no one expected him to face, and had left a mark that would resonate across the galaxy for generations to come. And in that, the story of humanity's courage, resilience, and potential had begun anew.